Prabhu, can you on your Zoom audio? Hare Krishna. So we'll start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today, with tomorrow being Sri Ramnavami festival, today we are going to look at one of the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Ramachandra meeting Samudra deva, and we'll understand some of the lessons from that. And tomorrow we have another lecture on Sri Ramnavami tomorrow morning, and then we have the festival lecture. So I request all the devotees to take advantage to hear more about Lord Ramachandra so that we can celebrate the festival with better consciousness. So today we will read a verse from 9th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter and text 14. Na tvam vayam jadadiyaha nu vidama bhuman na tvam vayam jadadiyo nu vidama bhuman kutastam adipurusham jagatam adhisham kutastam adipurusham jagatam adhisham yat satvataha suragana rajasaha prajesha yat satvataha suragana rajasa prajesha manayo cha bhutapatayaha saha bhavan guneshah manyoscha bhutapatayah sa bhavan guneshah natvam vayam jadadiyo nu vidama bhuman kutastam adipurusham jagatam adhisham yat satvata suragana rajasa prajesha manyoscha bhutapataya sa bhavan guneshah natvam vayam jadadiyo nu vidama bhuman kutastam adipurusham jagatam adhisham yat satvataha suragana rajasa prajesha manyoscha bhutapataya sa bhavan guneshah natvam vayam jadadiyo nu vidama bhuman kutastam adipurusham jagatam adhisham yat satvataha suragana rajasa prajesha मन्योश्च भूतपतयः स भवान् गुणेशः न त्वं वयं जडधियो नु विदाम भूमन् कूटस्थमादिपुरुषं जगतामधीशम् यत्सत्त्वतः सुरगणा रजसा प्रजेशा मन्योश्च भूतपतयः स भवान् गुणेशः न त्वां वयं जडधियो नु विदाम भूमन् कूटस्थमादिपुरुषं जगतामधीशम् यत्सत्त्वता सुरगणा रजसा प्रजेशा मन्योश्च भूतपतयः स भवान् गुणेशः न त्वं वयं जडधियो नु विदाम भूमन् कूटस्थमादिपुरुषं जगतामधीशम् यत्सत्त्वतः सुरगणा रजसा प्रजेशा मन्योश्च भूतपतयः स भवान् गुणेशः न त्वां वयं जडधियो नु विदाम भूमन् I'll join with the audio. कूटस्थमादिपुरुषं जगतामधीशम् यत्सत्त्वता सुरगणा रजसा प्रजेशा मन्योश्च भूतपतयः स भवान् गुणेशः न त्वां वयं जडधियो नु विदाम भूमन् कूटस्थमादिपुरुषं जगतामधीशम् यत्सत्त्वता सुरगणा रजसा प्रजेशा Putapataya sa bhavan gunesha. Word to word meaning. Na, not. Tvam, your lordships. Vayam, we. Jadatiyaha, dull-headed, dull-minded, possessing blunt intelligence. No, indeed. Vidamaha, can know. Bhuman, O Supreme. Kutastam, within the core of the heart. Adi Purusham, the original personality of Godhead. Jagatam, of the universes, which progressively go on. Adhisham, the Supreme Master. Yat, fixed under your direction. Satvataha, infatuated with. Satvaguna. Suraganaha, such demigods. Rajasaha, infatuated with Rajoguna. Praja Ishaha, the Prajapatis. Manyoho, influenced by Tamoguna. Cha, and Bhutapatayaha, rulers of ghosts. Saha, such a personality. Bhavan, your lordship. Gunaishaha, the master of all three modes of material nature. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O all-pervading Supreme Person, we are dull-minded and did not understand who you are. But now we understand that you are the Supreme Person, the Master of the entire universe, the unchanging and original personality of Godhead. The demigods are infatuated with the mode of goodness, the Prajapatis with the mode of passion, and the Lord of Ghosts with the mode of ignorance. But you are the master of all these qualities. Translation with repetition. O all-pervading Supreme Person, we are dull-minded and did not understand who you are. But now we understand that you are the Supreme Person, the Master of the entire universe, the unchanging and original personality of Godhead. The demigods are infatuated with the mode of goodness, the Prajapatis with the mode of passion, and the Lord of Ghosts with the mode of ignorance. But you are the master of all these qualities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Jaradiyaha refers to intelligence like that of an animal. A person with such intelligence cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without being beaten, an animal cannot understand the purpose of a man. Similarly, those who are dull-minded cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when punished severely by the modes of material nature, they begin to understand Him. A Hindi poet has said, "Dukha se sab hari bhaje, sukh se bhaje koi. Sukh se agar hari bhaje, dukh kathan se haya." When one is distressed, he goes to the church or temple to worship the Lord. But when opulent, he forgets the Lord. Therefore, punishment by the Lord through material nature is necessary in human society. For without it, men forget the supremacy of the Lord due to their dull, blunt intelligence. Thus ends the Transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, welcome everyone for the first session on Sri Ramanavami lecture series. So, today we are going to discuss about one of the important pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, that is Lord Ramachandra crossing over the ocean and eventually killing Ravana. So before we actually discuss the pastime, let us try to understand what is that we are trying to do when a festival like Sri Ramanavami is coming. What is that we are supposed to do, and why are we supposed to hear or attend these classes? So it is very important to note that Srila Prabhupada, whenever he presented the philosophy, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to understand soundly, with knowledge, in truth, not just by sentiment. And therefore Srila Prabhupada often said that I have written all these books for people who want to understand with logic, with intelligence, or anyone who wants to further progress. They can take advantage of these various literatures that Srila Prabhupada has given. So, amongst them, as we know, Srimad Bhagavatam, as considered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be the Amala Puranam. So, Srimad Bhagavatam also describes the activities of Lord Ramachandra. And in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a brief description of the activities of Lord Ramachandra, the pastimes of this Supreme Lord Ramachandra. And here, Sukadeva Goswami is narrating in brief to Parikshit Maharaj about the glories of Lord Ramachandra. So, as we know that Lord Ramachandra had to, on the order of his father, he left the kingdom along with Mother Sita and Lakshmana, and they were in the forest, and eventually Ravana abducts Mother Sita, and Lord Ramachandra, along with Lakshmana and other Vanaras, they go to Lanka. But in this process, there are various other events that takes place, and as we will see tomorrow, wonderful skit by the devotees on Jatayu Maranam. So just while the Lord was traveling south, and Jatayu, who tries to fight against Ravana, but could not save. Eventually, Jatayu gets killed in this battle with Ravana. Right immediately after this, Sukadeva Goswami is narrating further as what has happened after this. So, after this, Lord Ramachandra, along with other Vanaras, although there are different other pastimes which take place here, for the paucity of time, we will just focus on this one pastime, that Lord Ramachandra reaches to the shore of the Indian Ocean. So when Lord Ramachandra reaches to the shore of the Indian Ocean, he waits there for 3 days. In fact, he fasts for 3 days. Because for 3 days, the Lord of the Ocean, or Samudra deva, does not come to receive Lord Ramachandra. So Lord Ramachandra was waiting and he was fasting for 3 days, and then he just glances at the Indian Ocean. So his glance was so powerful that in the previous verse, Sukadeva Goswami says that simply by his glancing over the ocean, all the living entities within it, including the crocodiles and sharks, were agitated by fear. So one very important thing, Srila Prabhupada, whenever Prabhupada explains about supremacy of Lord, one of the characteristics of the Lord is omnipotence. Lord is all powerful. And Srila Prabhupada says again and again in different places, when people claim themselves to be God, Prabhupada says, can you lift Govardhan hill like Lord Krishna did? Or can you build a bridge on ocean? Now, similarly here we can see another wonderful act of the Supreme Lord. Simply by his glance, the big animals like crocodiles and sharks, they all were terrified. And they were agitated by fear. Then, seeing this, the Samudra deva could understand that this is not an ordinary person, on whose glance is just a moment of looking, not even just constant looking, just a moment of looking at something, and the entire ocean is agitated. The big animals, sharks and crocodiles, are agitated by fear. Samudra deva could understand that here is no ordinary person. Here is actually Supreme Personality of Godhead. And immediately he comes out and he immediately pays obeisances to Lord Ramachandra and starts pacifying Lord Ramachandra with prayers. So, one of the first lessons that we can learn from this incident of Samudra deva and Lord Ramachandra's meeting is that we fail to understand God. Although the Lord may be present very next to us, but we fail to understand. And why do we fail to understand? Prabhupada is explaining the verse that we just read out today. So we'll discuss that a little more further as how, why we do not understand, or why do we fail to see God. And what is the process by which we can understand or see God, and then what should we do? So with this first understanding that although the Lord was present on the shore, the Samudra deva was not able to perceive that the Supreme Lord has come. Similarly, we see even when Lord Krishna appeared, or various forms of various incarnations of the Lord when they appear, there are always a section of people who can never perceive the Lord. And especially we see in Bhagavad Gita that Lord says that those who are fools, avajananti mamudha, manushim tanim ashritaha. So when Lord takes 200 form, when he takes a human form of appearance, foolish people who are less intelligent, so Prabhupada translates mudha as less intelligent, and we will also see that as the reason that is given. So they cannot understand who is the Supreme Lord. Similarly, Lord Ramachandra's appearance is tomorrow, so we may not also perceive the way we have to perceive the Lord. And why does that happen? And so let us try to understand that a little more today. So in this verse that we just saw, Natvam Vayam Jadadiyo Nu Vidama Bhuman. So Bhuman, Prabhupada translates as O Supreme Person. So, O Supreme. So Samudra deva is offering this prayer to Lord Ramachandra. So as soon as he saw that by the glance the entire ocean is agitated, he saw that here is no ordinary person, and therefore he immediately recognized the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, and he is offering this prayer by saying, Jadadiyo, na vidama. So I could not understand, we could not understand Bhuman, O Supreme. Why? Because of Jadadiyaha. So second lesson that we can understand from this lesson is that dull-headed, dull-minded people cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Although it is very simple point, we may think what is so unique about this. But actually the uniqueness of this point is, it is even requires some intelligence to understand that we are actually dull-headed. Because we are so much caught up in thinking about ourselves in different ways, and our perception to be the true perception of what the world is, what everything is, we forget that we are actually dull-minded. And even to recognize this simple fact is not so easy. Here, Samudra deva is able to recognize, after understanding who the God is, he is understanding what he was before. So similarly, unless we do not know who the Lord is, what we are actually supposed to do, we are actually dull-minded. But in ignorance, we get caught up with so many other things, and we get engrossed and absorbed in so many things that we forget the dull-mindedness of our dull-minded mind. So, to recognize this aspect of being dull-minded or less intelligent is another very important principle for anyone who wants to make further progress in spiritual life. So, the third lesson that we will see here is the understanding of Samudra Deva about who the Lord is. So here, the third lesson that Samudra Deva is giving us is who the Supreme Lord is. So he is explaining here, Kutastam Adi Purusham Jagatam Adhisham. So who is that Supreme Lord? So because if you do not understand who the Supreme Lord is, everything related to the Supreme Lord for us does not make any sense. So with Lord Rama's appearance tomorrow, it's very important for us to meditate on who the Lord is. Because as we are dull-minded, we need continuous reminders. We need to continuously hear again and again to recognize who the Lord is, who I am, and what I must do. So here, Samudra Deva is describing and glorifying Lord Ramachandra as who he is. He is saying, O all-pervading Supreme Person. Very interesting. The Lord is all-pervading. The Lord, as I think today's video, I don't know how many of you watched, I think it was talking about omnipresence of the Lord. I don't know if some of you are not aware, India Heritage Foundation Boston is releasing short videos on Bhagavad Gita series explaining one concept at a time. And today there was a beautiful video describing the omnipresence of the Lord. And here Samudra Deva is also telling, O all-pervading Supreme Person. The Lord is present everywhere. It is so unique, it is so irony that the Lord is present everywhere, but we are not able to see Him. We are not able to realize Him. We are not able to understand Him. Something which is located in only one place, it might be difficult to find because it's in some corner, or maybe someone cannot know, someone may know, because it's localized in a very small place. But the Supreme Lord is all-pervasive. And then he is also describing the Lord as the master of the entire universe. So just like someone comes and says, do you know the Prime Minister of this country? And someone says, I do not know. Then one thinks, oh, what kind of general knowledge you got? You do not know the most important person of this country? And here it is being said as Jagatam Adisham, the Supreme Master of the universe. So if someone comes and asks us, oh, who is the Supreme Master of the entire universe? Sometimes we may not know. But here Samudra Deva, having realized, having understood the supremacy of the Lord, he is saying, oh Lord, you are the master of the all universes. And then he is saying the unchanging and original personality of Godhead. So the Lord is Adi Purusham. So he is the prime, he is the first original person. He is the original supreme personality of Godhead, and from whom everything else has emanated. So here Samudra Deva is able to understand who the Supreme Lord is, and is able to realize that Supreme Lord has come here. And then he addresses the Lord with one more quality, that is, he is Guneshaha, that he is the master of three modes of material nature. That is, he gives further explanation by saying that the demigods are in the mode of goodness, the Prajapatis are in the mode of passion, and the Lord of goes with the mode of ignorance. But you are the master of all these qualities. So, this is another important quality of the Lord, that who is never touched by these modes of material nature, who is always transcendental. His transcendental being never gets affected at any point of time. He is, so as we know, Kshara and Akshara. He is never fallible. We are fallible, but the Supreme Lord is never fallible. He never comes under the influence of material energy. So this is the glory of the Lord. So why this is important to understand this glories of the Lord, we'll discuss in the last section of our discussion today. But let us just pay a little more understand as why we do not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why the Lord, who is present everywhere, who is master of all the universes, who is beyond the modes of material nature, why do we fail to understand the Supreme Lord? So, first let us try to understand how do we understand things. So usually we understand things by direct perception. So we try to see something and understand whether something is present or not present. But the Supreme Lord is adokshaja. That means he is beyond the perception, he is beyond the sense perception. We cannot capture him by our senses. Most people try to understand, oh, where is God? Can you show me? So they are all thinking by seeing, I can capture the Lord, or by if you show me something. But he is adokshaja, he is beyond the senses. Or some people try by mental speculation. Some people think by some sort of, neti, or some other sort of speculation, they come to understand there is some transcendence. The other day, one student at MIT, she was sharing that what I do is I close my eyes in the night every day for 5 minutes, and I assume that there is a light that is coming into my heart. And that light is purifying me. That light is calming me down. So like this, people have speculation about who that Supreme is. And they think in this different forms of speculation, they're finding some relief. But neither this way we can actually understand who the Supreme Lord is. So this is another characteristics of dull intelligence, is that we are trying to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord, in the way we want. And here, Prabhupada is referring, further explaining that the word Jadadiya refers to intelligence like that of an animal. A person with such intelligence cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our intelligence, if it is just restricted to some form of speculation or some sort of understanding through only direct perception, is not sufficient. The another characteristic of dull intelligence is a person with dull intelligence is engrossed in gross things. As we see in the Rishabdeva's teachings, Nayam deho bhajan nirloke kaschan kaman. So the living entities like Vidbhujam, the dogs and hogs, they seek pleasure in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And especially eating filthy things and thinking that is the source of happiness. So people who are less intelligent, their focus is to extract happiness from things which are gross. There is no higher understanding of what is beyond this eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentions how people are working very, very hard in this age, thinking that that is the goal of life. The parents teach children from very young age, what should you do? You should work hard, you should work hard, you should work hard. You should become like me, an IT employee. Why? Because they think that is the purpose of life. According to their intelligence, they think that one who succeeds in this is actually an intelligent person. If our intelligence is limited to just finer eating, sleeping, mating, and defending by getting different kinds of material facilities, then that is known as Jaradiya. If one has got such kind of intelligence just to satisfy the bodily necessities, one cannot understand Supreme Personality of Godhead. One requires something else to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that verse, Rishabdeva talks about tapasya, for understanding tapo divyam putraka ena shuddhyat sattvam. So tapo divyam, so for spiritual advancement one should work. The tapasya is not to acquire this mundane facilities of life, which is even available for lower species of life. But the human form of life, in this form of life, one can acquire Brahma Saukyam to Anantam. One can acquire spiritual happiness endless happiness. And that should be the goal of the individual, to understand the Supreme Lord, to associate with the Supreme Lord, and experience that spiritual Brahma Saukyam, which is Anantam, which is the kind of happiness that the living entity is seeking. But when the living entity is unaware, especially in the human form of life, one is unaware of that ultimate truth, one is engrossed in other activities of basic necessities of life. And Prabhupada says that how do you wake an animal up? How do you make animal work? Animal which is very dull, does not see any value in anything, does not see any meaning in doing higher activities of life. How do you wake an animal? Prabhupada says, without being beaten, an animal cannot understand the purpose of a man. Without being beaten, an animal cannot understand the purpose of a man. Similarly, as we are dull-headed, we also need beaten. We need to be beaten up. And without being beaten up, our intelligence does not wake up. But who will beat us? For an animal, there is a master who beats. But humans are a little more sophisticated. They have more independence and slightly more intelligence. They run away from the master and they can hide somewhere. But the animals, they're poor, they cannot do so much, they do not have so much intelligence. So we run away and we take shelter of our own master of mind and senses. So that is the usual way in which people try to lead their life, that to avoid being beaten up. But that's why Vedic scriptures say that the first principle for our dull-minded mind to wake up is to take shelter of a spiritual master. So without taking shelter of a spiritual master, our dull mind will not awaken. It will not rise to the real intelligence. So therefore, there is absolute necessity for having a spiritual master. So without having a spiritual master, one cannot understand Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we were also seeing in the other word which was Rishabhdeva mentioning is that tapasya. The spiritual master helps us to understand that tapasya which is required. Tapo divyam putraka ena shuddhet sattvam. That tapasya which will purify our existence. The spiritual master gives us that process. Now, what is that tapasya that is required for us? So that is beautifully Brahma instructs this. So in the prayers of Brahma, it is mentioned there that Jnane prayasam udapasya namante eva jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiya vartham sthane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir ye prayaso jito api asi tais trilokyam. So this is the tapasya that is recommended for us. What is that tapasya? Jnane prayasa udupasya namante eva. Jnane prayasa. The mind, which is the source of speculation, we should give that up. How can we give up the speculation? By surrendering to the instructions of the spiritual master. Moment we take shelter of speculation, because that is the nature of the dull-minded mind is not to let us know that we are in speculation. That's why we are caught up. We cannot come out of the problem. Although sometimes when we see a problem for other person, we can very easily give an instruction. Oh, this is what it is. Come out of this. But for us, when we are in the same problem, we cannot see it because we are caught in our own mind. And therefore, we need to come out of this Jnane Prayasa, not only for our basic problems, but to understand the Supreme Lord. We cannot just understand by our mental speculation. Udapasya means to give up. So the effort that we put to understand the Supreme Lord simply by speculation has to be given up. And then what one must do? Namanta eva jivanti. So how should one live then? Offering obeisances to the Lord and san mukharitam bhavadiya vartam. So one should simply hear sthane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir. So one has to give up this process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind, offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities. So, this is the process that is followed by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and as given by Acharyas, is that we have to, with our body, mind, and words, we need to pay respects and hear this wonderful transcendental pastimes, activities of the Supreme Lord from a pure devotee. So when we hear this, that is when we can understand the Supreme Lord. This is the tapasya for us. For us, the tapasya is to hear about the Lord, because Prabhupada, in one of the classes, Prabhupada saw that there was some devotees were running here and there and they were not paying attention to the class. Then Prabhupada says, if you do not hear, you will not do tapasya, you will not be interested in doing tapasya. If you do not hear, then you will not appreciate why you are doing, why you should do, what you should do. There will be no appreciation. Then it becomes some sort of a karma, some sort of an activity for some benefit, not for the pleasure of the Lord. So this aspect of hearing is of prime importance. So that's why these classes that we have, they help us to remind again and again that we are dull-minded, we do not understand the Supreme Lord, we do not even make effort to understand the Supreme Lord. But by repeatedly hearing how various devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam have understood the Lord, what they have done, what is that is to be done, by repeatedly hearing, we can come out of this illusion that we think something else is of prime importance. There are so many other things which are of importance. So our priorities in life will change only when we hear about the Supreme Lord. Our perception of life, our activities of life will change. And one of the things Prabhupada says when we hear is that our eagerness to take more voluntary tapasya will increase. Our eagerness to do service will increase. So without hearing, it is not possible. So, and here such a beautiful process, thane sthitaha. So if anyone who is sincerely doing this principle, one may be a student, grihastha, sannyasi, or anyone in any ashrama, any varna, does not matter. Even if one is following certain material position, that's okay, but one has to do this. That is, one should give oral reception to the words of a pure devotee of the Lord who is describing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only by this process one can understand the unconquerable Supreme Lord. One can conquer the Supreme Lord who is never conquered by anyone. He is ajitaha. He is never to be conquered. But because, as we see this verse, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indre sevan mukhe jivado swayam spurati evadaha. So only when one is imbued, saturated with devotional service, only when one is saturated with pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, the Lord reveals Himself. That is the only way to understand Lord. No other means. But how do we go there? How do we go to a stage where we can do pure devotional service? So for that, the first step is to hear, accept a bona fide spiritual master and hear from him with all our body, mind and words, offering respects to this oral reception which is coming from the pure devotee. By doing this, we can understand the Supreme Lord. So this is one important lesson. So we all fail to understand. But another reason that we can say why we fail to understand is because our intelligence and we are covered with three modes of material nature. So when we are covered with three modes of material nature, the Lord who is beyond three modes of material nature, we cannot perceive. And as Kunti Maharani also says, Maya Javanika Channam. So there is a curtain of deluding energy. The Lord who is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, who is always present. Even as we see here, it is being said, O all-pervading Supreme Person. So Lord is present everywhere. But what is that is stopping us is the material energy. So because we are covered with three modes of material nature, The material energy is preventing us from seeing that Supreme Lord. And how does this curtain of material energy go away? Only when we take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And how do we take shelter of the Lord? By sincerely hearing and then rendering service. So this is an important principle, that in order to understand Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. We have to hear the descriptions of the Lord, take the tapasya, the required tapasya to obtain krita punya punja, so to get that pious credit sufficient enough to go back to the spiritual world, because that's not very easy, because that requires the individual living entity's willingness. Because if the living entity is not willing to render service to the Lord for various reasons, the living entity is not qualified to attain the highest perfection. So that is one point. Another point to note is that how do we overcome this dull-minded intelligence? So one way is we saw this process of taking shelter. The other process, which is similar, but one more additional thing that can be done, is to be part of Sankirtana. So the process, the easy process by which we can overcome our dull-minded head is to come together. Sankirtana means to come together and glorify the Lord. So Sankirtana means definitely chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, coming together. And in any other form of Sankirtana, that means coming and doing service, maintaining the temple, worshipping the Lord. This is all different forms of glorifying the Lord. But when we come together, there is a special potency, because as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. This Sankirtana allows us to receive the special mercy of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is more difficult to do by our individual efforts, because individually we are weak. But when we come together in the mood of service to please Srila Prabhupada and Sri Gaur Nitai, when we come together, breaking down our individual barriers of false ego, prestige, pride, but whatever effort that we can do, but if we can come together, then our dull-minded mind will wake up very soon. So that is another very important principle that we need to take care. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentions about a Hindi poet who says, Dukh se sab hari baje. So when one is distressed, everyone goes to the temple, church to worship the Lord. But when opulent, he forgets the Lord. Sukh se bache koi. So this is our situation. Sometimes we remember Lord, sometimes we forget the Lord. And especially we are in distress. Sometimes even when we are distressed, we forget because we are so distressed. Sometimes we are so happy that we forget the Lord. Sukh se agar hari bache, dukha kathan se haya. Therefore, punishment by the Lord through material nature is necessary in human society, for without it men forget the supremacy of the Lord due to their dull, blunt intelligence. So here again Prabhupada is bringing this point that the punishment by the Lord through material nature is necessary in human society. So we undergo various sufferings in this material world only to make us realize that we should actually take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Sukhe dukhe bhulo nako sada hari bole dako. So as great Acharya sing that we should take to this process of constant chanting, but for that to happen we need beating. We need beating, but that beating can happen in the association of Vaishnavas. And therefore we must be extremely grateful when sometimes we get chastised or we get, we are said something, be it about our sadhana, be it about our activities. When devotees, Vaishnavas, they say something, we should really introspect, because that is very helpful to remind us whether am I becoming more surrendered. Sometimes it may look tasty, sometimes it may look bitter, but the principle here that we can see is that through this beating, it will help us to again and again realize, because sometimes we think that miseries are coming for no reason of mine, and there is nothing that I'm supposed to do. But on the other hand, we can see that there is some punishment of the Lord of material nature, and for me it is to become more sincere and take shelter of the Lord. And the easiest way we can avoid the harsh beating of uh, material nature is to be under the association and guidance of Vaishnavas and Srila Prabhupada. By their guidance, we can save ourselves from the harsh beating of material nature, and by the soft beating of the Vaishnavas, we can understand the Supreme Lord. And therefore, to be in the association of devotees is very important. One should understand that without the association of devotees, it is very difficult to make progress in spiritual life. And by the mercy of Vaishnavas, when one pleases Vaishnavas, by their simple mercy, one can overcome so many anarthas and make rapid advancement, develop greater understanding of the Supreme Lord. So, just to summarize, the Samudra deva, he could not understand who the Lord is, the Lord Ramachandra, although he was present in front of him. Similarly, we also fail to understand the Lord who is appearing before us. So, if we do not understand the Lord, we will not know how to associate with the Lord. We will not know what to do, even when the Lord is in front of us. And that is because of our dull intelligence. And one another principle which I thought to share before we end, that how should we celebrate festivals? So Srila Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, he says is that we should associate and with the Lord. So that is festival. Festival means to increase our association with the Lord. And how do we do that? So Prabhupada says, by hearing, by cleansing the temple. So different ways of devotional service are meant to help us associate with the Lord. Starting with Shravanam, to hear more about the Lord. So Prabhupada says festival means you should hear more about the Lord. You should do more kirtan. You should do more service. So as we are having festival tomorrow, the Supreme Lord, who is all pure, simply by whose association we can become all pure. So tomorrow is a wonderful opportunity where we can increase our association with the Lord. So the devotees are making wonderful arrangements for the festivities, and all of us can participate in doing different kinds of services to come forward more and hear whole day more about the Lord and engage in different kinds of services for the pleasure of the Lord. It is by this method that we actually celebrate festival. So one way of festival is to just attend for a portion of the festival. But real festival means how do we associate with the Lord more and more. And so festivals are meant for that. And I request all the devotees to visit the temple, take darshan of the Lord, invite more people to associate with the Lord. And it is by this process, the Lord's Sankirtana mission is such that when more and more people come, the more and more potency increases. And there is more and more transcendental mercy of the Lord that flows. So it's another wonderful opportunity, and we can learn from this beautiful pastime of Samudra Deva and Lord Ramachandra as how we need to awaken our dull-minded mind and take shelter of the Supreme Lord, hear more continuously, more and more, and then develop this eagerness to do more tapasya and more service to the Lord. And by this association, we can purify our life and perfect. So this is some points that I thought to share from the lecture. Anyone has any comments or questions? One other point, just maybe I'll just end with, is the glorification of the Lord. So Samudra Deva, as soon as he understood the Lord, he's glorifying the Lord, he's offering prayers. So similarly, we should utilize our abilities to glorify the Lord in whatever way possible. and by coming together in the association of devotees, we can do that more easily, and there is greater potency in it. So that is the third learning, which I did not emphasize very much, but that's the another learning that we can take from Samudra Deva's meeting with Lord Ramachandra. So basically, it is the ignorance of. So when one is covered with three modes of material nature, one is not able to see the benefit of associating with the transcendental Lord, the all supreme personality of Godhead, by whose association one can experience the true happiness or true Satchitananda. So when one's intelligence is covered with three modes of material nature, the kind of happiness or kind of association that he seeks is according to the kind of modes of material nature that he is associated with. So, unless there is no external force in the beginning by which one understands the importance of associating with the Lord, or unless one is not having enough spiritual energy going in, which is not removing the so when the spiritual energy goes in, he feels the transcendental happiness of associating or purification that is happening, and that propels more to associate with the Lord. So if there is no sufficient inflow of spiritual energy going in, then the material energy drags the individual to associate with something else apart from the Supreme Lord. What? So it is the individual living entity's unwillingness to not associate with the process that is recommended. The living entity is, for some reasons, considering other things to be of importance, or not. So I think the willingness of the living entity is the important factor. Then the Lord guides further based upon the willingness of the living entity, and then the further help. Okay, if there are no questions or comments. So tomorrow is Sri Ramnavami festival. So all the devotees are requested to come and take darshan and participate in the beautiful festivities. And also please reach out and invite others. At the same time, we have a lot of service seva opportunities also to serve the Lord. So please reach out to devotees and be part of the seva opportunity. Thank you all for joining. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Sri Ramnavami Maha Mahotsav ki. Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna.